Bloody hell! It's not Hermione Granger, it's not Harry Potter, and it's not Ron Weasley. It's Patricia, it's Aubrie, and it's MacKenzie Boin!
Alright guys, so we're YouTubing it today, talking about the Charlton Story, written by Earle Perry Charlton II and George Winnie. It's published 2001. Now what this biography is about is it depicts the successes of a great individual and entrepreneur, Earle Charlton. And so, let me see here, he was what scholars alike defined him as the archetypal complete entrepreneur, and he projected his interests and concerns beyond the enterprise and beyond everything else. He had a big heart, he was passionate about it, and he took care of his employees, and that took him a long way. So, now ironically enough, failure was a huge part of his success, and as it is in anyone's life, he failed a couple of times and bounced back, and that's what an entrepreneur is. They find different ways to get what they want. Now, Charlton, let me see here. It was said that Charlton would never pause to loathe and admire any of his achievements, and nor to work repeatedly at the same tasks. So he was constantly changing up and doing new things and working on what he could. Last thing to mention from this forward was that there was a specific motif of care, like I mentioned. Taking care of his employees took him a long way. Now for the basics.
Now,
Earle Perry Charlton was born in Chester, Connecticut on June 19th in 1863, and he was the son of James D. Charlton and Lydia Ladd. His father was a blacksmith, and his family immigrated from England to America in 1636. Grew up in Chester, however he didn't graduate and didn't want to go into his father's profession. Went off on his own after saving up some money, went into the merchant business. Before you know it, he went past the clerk, he went past the traveling businessman where he made all of his connections, and by 1889 he had become into the business with a partner, Seymour Knox, and their first store opened up in Fall River, February 22nd of 1889, huge success, and their partnership lasted 6 years. In 1896, they departed, and the reason for this is their ultimate visions of the business were going in separate ways. And Charlton to continue to develop on his own, so did Knox. And in 1900, his first international store was opened up in Montreal, Canada, because he saw that there were a lot of opportunities where the other businesses weren't expanding. He looked to Canada, he looked to Western Coast, America, and even Central, but his first thoughts were Canada, where he laid a lot of money. And he found more success with every store that he opened. And it was around this time of vast development that he took in a young lad rather, at 17 years or so, mentored him until he grew into a nice man, became his right-hand wing, and he did all the dirty work for him, took care of all the little details. And so in summary of what I have said, Earle Perry Charlton was a man of integrity, courage, resourcefulness, and initiative accompanied by strong interpersonal skills. Thank you for listening, and on to MacKenzie Boin.
Hello, Governor. Now, let's start by saying the competitive stores were opening stores as fast as Frank Woolworth and his associates. In 1906, rumors of a merger were heard. Fierce competition between the various contenders with threats to reduce prices, and nothing came out of it. In 1911, Frank Woolworth called the members of his loosely federated retail family together to discuss his proposition of a gigantic merger. Woolworth was president, and the rest of his founders were vice presidents. On November 3rd, in 1911, an announcement was made that there would be an executive office and 8 district offices. Earle Perry Charlton received 30,000 shares.
30,000 shares!
The new Woolworth Company was incorporated on December 15th in 1911. From the time of the merger until January 1912, the new Woolworth Company contained a total of 596 stores. F.W. Woolworth had a severe nervous breakdown. In the last 7 years of his life after the merger, he became morose, grossly obese, and brooded over the last object that gave him purpose. The last object that gave him purpose was the construction of the Great Woolworth Building, which opened in April of 1913. Although Earle Charlton retired, he still attended Woolworth board meetings and executive committee meetings. Now, Earle Charlton married...
Okay, it's alright. She's dropping back a little bit to where I was talking about his basic life, who he married, whatnot, so we're going back a little bit in time.
Alright, Earle Charlton married Ida May when he was only 26, on his 26th birthday on June 19th, 1889. The original business alliance with Seymour Knox was signed on December 13th in 1889 in Buffalo. 2 months later, Earle brought Ida to Fall River, where he was established his first store under the Knox-Charlton banner. They had 2 daughters and 1 son. Oldest daughter Ruth, their son was Earle Perry Jr., and their youngest daughter was Virginia.
1 son, 2 daughters, that's all you need to know.
Okay, next. He lived on a pond meadow. Sadly, he lost this house due to a fire. But after this traumatic experience, or event, Charlton constructed a new, more modern, and grander pond meadow. This was a mansion, and it had 2 greenhouses out back.
That last line, just going to next week.
Okay, now, to list some of his successful traits and successes themselves, by this time in life, Charlton had become a wealthy and privileged member of society, a multi-millionaire as director and vice president in the largest variety chain store in the world. In the world! Businessmen of all sorts and more looked up to him for an example. Always involved in dozens of activities, social, commercial, charitable, and etc. Known as a great industrialist, if not the best, obtained a lot for commercial dictatorship. He was a member of a ridiculous amount of clubs. Example is New York Yacht Club. Aided... What? Okay.
It's my turn.
Now on to Patricia.
And the closing days.
By
February 1930, Charlton decided he wanted to socialise and play, but unfortunately his health conflicted with that. He was diagnosed with undisclosed bladder alignment, which he was operated on and spent 6 weeks in the hospital.
6 weeks in the hospital.
He died November 22nd, 1930, and was buried at the Charlton Family Mausoleum in Fall River, Massachusetts. Charlton divided his estate with his discerner among his family and his friends. His wife received all liquid assets in real estate. Each child received $100,000 each. Grandchildren $25,000. Knock it off. Yeah, everybody else's was.
I know, it's okay.
Mary Dunn, his secretary, received $25,000. John and Mary, his siblings, $25,000, and Mary's husband, $25,000.
$25,000.
Staff at Marlow Pond, $5,000. His former chauffeur, $10,000, and the staff at the club in Fall River, he attended $1,000. The rest of it was divided into the Charlton Charity Trust and Charlton Building Trust, you just hit me. The lasting legacy, one of the greatest legacies he left behind, was his incredible
Shit, so that wrong. I gotta cut that out too. It's alright, I can cut this out, just keep going.
Oh, okay. Foresight to set up numerous charitable trusts with advice and counsel of the First National Bank of Boston. Many great Americans, must I say, American merchants, never even donated to charities while living, never mind dead.
Donated.
Shut up. Earle left behind $32 million, and 2.9 of that million went to his charities. In 1979, a project to help his beloved city arose for the Charlton.
Yeah, Patricia, come on. Don't cut out.
Charlton.
Just make sure your face is under
Charitable Trust. What?
Make sure they can see your face.
And like instead of going through a lot of the details, because I can cut this out right now, just try to sum up main points. Like we don't need to know like some of the salaries and stuff like that.
Well, that's like half of it.
Keep going. Just start over where you were when you messed up. But make sure they can see your face.
In 1979, a project to merge two hospitals into one under the Charlton name arose for the Charlton Charitable Trusts, which received $1 million to build on March 1st, 1980 on Highland Ave. Charlton Memorial Hospital was founded. Ruth, one of... Who's Ruth?
The first daughter. The eldest daughter.
Okay, the only daughter. You don't even need to know just the daughter.
Charlton's daughter, first husband died in March 1960, later married to Dr. James Mason and moved to Rochester, Minnesota shortly after Dr. Mason died. She died of the age of 104 in 1995, and 80% of her estate went to Mayo Clinic, the other 20% Charlton Memorial Hospital. Charlton Charitable Trusts continue to help local charities such as Boys and Girls Club, YMCA, Clark School of Deaf, and Family Service Agency. July 17, 1977, 400 Woolworth stores closed, ending the 118 years of operation. Sales and profits declined year after year. In the last year they were in business, over 9,200 employees terminated and $36 billion lost. In June 2nd, no.
Just go.
June 12, 1998, Woolworth Company changed to Venator Group. Name meant sportsmanship in Latin. Venator sold the Woolworth building for $155 million and changed location in New York City.
So guys, that's our Charlton story, because we are part of the Charlton School of Business here at UMass Dartmouth. We'd like to thank you for listening, and we hope you have a great day.
Cheerio!
You want to say something?
No.
Cheerio!